What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another My Week With video. So this week I've been driving the 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser, and this is the Land Cruiser, the regular version, not the 1958 retro looking one, obviously, but not the top Heritage Edition or whatever, the limited edition thing. And so as far as my week with the Land Cruiser, well, there were some pros and some cons, and I'm just really excited to spend a week with this since I had a pretty short first drive with the Land Cruiser earlier this year, and so now getting to live with it, I've put over 200 miles on it, a little bit more than my regular amount of driving, spent about almost 7 hours behind the wheel here, and I really enjoy this thing. It's, I think the thing that I appreciate the most is just this instant boost and instant response from the mild hybrid system you have here with this 2.4 liter turbo 4 engine. This iForce Max powertrain for these is really punchy. I mean, it is plenty of power for something like this that, and I'll talk more about the GX and its appeal with the twin turbo V6 in a minute, but this is all the power you need. Don't feel like a four-cylinder in this is going to feel underpowered. It doesn't. It feels great. I also love the smooth ride of this one. This one just has regular, street tires, nothing too knobby for, an off-road setup or anything. But for someone who doesn't do a lot of off-roading, for me, it's really a nice smooth ride, combined with these seats that are nice and soft and smooth. It still is a body-on-frame vehicle, but it's so smooth that I would argue it's one of the smoothest body-on-frame vehicles on the market today from a ride quality standpoint. It's really that impressive. I think the Lexus outdoes it again slightly, but this is really so comfortable, and so that might be bad news if you're an off-roader or you're someone who wants some aggressive off-road thing that punishes you on every drive. But for me, this was great because you had that adventure-ready kind of vibe with this thing, with the tall square windows and all that, and again, being a large vehicle, I mean, I'm like looking down at RAV4s and stuff. I mean, it's big, but it's a friendlier big, and it's more accessible and less intimidating than like a Bronco or a Wrangler or something like that. And I just am really enjoying my week here with the Land Cruiser, but it wasn't all good stuff. So a couple of the little cons. First off is that these seats, they're cooled seats here in this top trim, which is great. But for me, strangely, it was only cooling my upper back. My lower and middle of my back, it felt like there was no cooling going on. Really nothing for the seat bottom either. It was just like the top part of my back, which is the strangest thing. I've never had a cooled seat that only does that part. I'm sure maybe this one's just a little bit off. I believe this is a regular production model at this point, but just it was a little strange there. But one cool thing that worked very well was the cool box, which I'm so glad we have the return of the cool box here. And it was great for drinks, keeping those nice and cold. And I mean, it gets cold, like not just like a nice little, breezy cold. I mean, like this thing inside of here was just as cold as my refrigerator. It's really well done. And I think it's a cool option, even though it does, limit the amount of space there in that cargo box. And the last little interior thing to mention is this has this JBL 14 speaker stereo as part of a premium package, which is several $1,000s on top of these already fairly expensive Land Cruisers. And the JBL stereo was a disappointment in my opinion. It was fine, but it's not fantastic. And to me, I haven't sampled the bass stereo extensively, but to me, this just didn't feel like a huge upgrade from what you get with other vehicles this kind of competes against. I mean, it's probably going to be better than a Wrangler stereo for sure, but it's nothing super impressive. So if you're on the fence about the premium package and you'd like a nice stereo upgrade, I would see if you have the luxury of checking out a bass stereo first, but I'd say that this one is just a little underwhelming. So last little critique here for the inside. One complaint I have about the driving experience is the start-stop system. So it's really smart with, it does a little bit more than the average mild hybrid, where it will shut down the engine basically anytime you're coasting, and a lot of other mild hybrids are a little more reluctant and only do it certain times. This, it tries to act more like a full hybrid, although, again, it can't really do any acceleration under electric power, really, aside from the slightest of inputs. But I mean, I love just having the engine turn off every time I'm going downhill, which is frequent here in southwestern Pennsylvania with our hilly roads. And whenever you're up and running, I will say that it's always responsive. It, hops in and gives me the power I want the second I start putting my foot back on the gas. But I found that the start-stop system can be caught off guard every once in a while, especially from a stop. And I don't know if that's just the transmission figuring out what gear it wants to be in to start off with. or if it's just everything coming back online. But there's a few times where I had to wait a beat, where like, someone would wave me on and be like, oh, okay, I'll go, at a stop sign or something, and then it's like 1 and 2, and okay, now we're going. I mean, it's slight. It's certainly better than some other vehicles. I've complained about start-stop lag, and like Mercedes, theirs is far worse than this. So it's relative, but it's just, there is a little bit of a delay every once in a while, and you might not love that. So just one thing I want to, highlight here, definitely take it for a test drive, see how that works in your own experience, and, whether or not that waiting period is something that is annoying. Now, I will say that if you're not in a hurry, it's no problem, and especially if you're driving at a more relaxed pace, not a big deal. But if you're someone who's often rushing around places, or are in high stress kind of driving situations, it might get on your nerves just a little bit. One thing that I think is a more substantial complaint is the fuel economy here. These are rated at 22 mpg in the city, 25 on the highway, and 23 combined. And my driving, I did a lot of highway driving. I would say probably at least half of my driving was on the highway, probably a little bit more than half. And my fuel economy average has been 19.5 mpg. So I am a full 2.5 mpg less than the city rating. And I was hoping with the amount of highway driving I was doing, I get closer to the combined, which again is only 1 mpg higher. But so I was hoping to hit 23, and I'm sitting at 19.5. Again, your mileage will vary. It'll come down to your driving style, what you're doing, and all of that. But for me, it fell short of that expectation, and that's kind of a big deal, because part of the whole justification for the Land Cruiser, its Turbo 4 and all that, and the Hybrid Max system, is potentially better fuel economy. And sure, 19.5 is better than the old V8 powered Land Cruisers used to get, but that's still, at least with, again, my experience, isn't far off from the twin turbo V6 that the Lexus GX is rated at, for its fuel economy. And so it just makes me kind of, wonder why it's not doing better, again, especially since I'm coasting down all these hills. It's giving me a lot of electric driving, I guess you could say, and to still be getting only 19.5. I mean, this thing obviously has terrible aerodynamics. It's, shaped like a brick. It's heavy. It's a body on frame thing. So, compared to other like pickup trucks and stuff, 19.5 for full size vehicles is, I'd say slightly better than average for sure. But, it just makes the case for this a little harder to justify, because that's the final thing to mention here is the pricing and how it compares to the GX, which I still think is the strongest competitor to this. Obviously, Wranglers, Broncos, things like that are a little more polarizing. You either want one of those or you don't. You either want, something that extreme or you don't. But the GX is the real problem for the Land Cruiser, because this one, as tested, is $71,829 with that premium package added on to the Land Cruiser. So, I mean, it's very nice in here. You have all the features you would expect. You have a camera rearview mirror. You have the heated and cooled seats. You have a lot of nice stuff here. The screens are nice and big. I mean, it gives you basically everything the Lexus does for the most part. But the problem is that the way this one's configured, I could even go for not only a base GX, but you can get a premium plus version of the GX, which again is comparable to this as far as the amount of features. You get heated and cooled seats as standard in a GX. So they start from a very high level even for a base one. And those GXs actually with a premium plus trim, which even has the cool box and all those things added in, is about $1,000 less than this. And you also get a twin turbo V6 with more power, more towing, and you get a third row, which, I mean, maybe for some people is a negative if you want to have the extra cargo space in the back, but the trade-off is the GX doesn't have the hybrid system, so you don't have the higher floor like you have here in this. So that's the problem. If the GX didn't exist, then I'd say Land Cruiser is totally fine. And I think, my justification for this vehicle would be the potential of better fuel economy. And I guess you still have that potential because, again, it is rated, I think, about 6 mpg higher than the GX. So, again, maybe my experience is an outlier. I mean, this is middle of the summer here. I'm not having long warm-up periods or having winter fuel or anything else that would drag down this average. And, again, I wasn't beating on this. I mean, it's a Land Cruiser. I'm not driving around like a sports car in this thing. So, it's just kind of a mystery to me, but if in a hypothetical situation you think you can hit those EPA numbers, then that's justification, is this is essentially you know, close to being as nice as a GX. I mean, the GX still has more sound deadening, more plush materials. You have the prestige of the Lexus badge and experience of, you know, going to Lexus dealers versus Toyota dealers. You know, so all those things, if you don't care about that stuff and you're just like, hey, I want something like this, but I want better fuel economy, I want the 4-cylinder, or you just like the Land Cruiser styling better than the GX, then great, fine, go for this. But that's a really small niche of people we're already talking about with just Land Cruiser and GX buyers in general that have 70 grand to spend on something like this. And then to whittle it down even more, it's just tough. So I really, at the end of the day, as much as I love this, and this fully loaded one with this beautiful brown leather and the two-tone roof and all that, as much as I love all this stuff, to me, I think really the only way Land Cruiser makes sense is if you go for a base Land Cruiser. The 1958 edition is really cool. I love the retro cloth seats in those. You still have a fine 8-inch touchscreen. You can also upgrade that to this bigger 12-inch screen if you'd like. You know, but you get, you know, most of the same stuff here, the same space, the same vibe. Mechanically, it's all the same, you know, for that 1958 edition. And if you can live with the round headlights, you know, to me, that is really the only way Land Cruiser makes sense, unless you are, you know, one of the handful of people that want this styling over the Lexus for the same money and, you know, want a Toyota experience for the same money as a Lexus experience. So that's really the problem. It's a shame because I love this thing, and I understand that, you know, Toyota is between a rock and a hard place here with pricing, because we have 4Runner coming here for the 2025 model year that's all new, and that's going to probably be a little more expensive than the last generation. And, you know, it's such a tight-knit group where you have Sequoia, you have so many other vehicles here that are also these body-on-frame trucks that are all cool in their own way, but we're talking about a niche of a niche of a niche here with these, and it's just, you know, it's not going to lead to huge sales numbers, I don't think. I don't think Toyota's hoping for that either. This is always going to be a niche thing, and so maybe that's part of the appeal of the Land Cruiser, is just the fact that you're not going to see one every day, and anyone who does cross-shop these is going to be like, well, I'll just get the GX, end of story, easy decision. And so it will make this more of a unicorn, and so maybe there's some appeal there. Again, if you don't care about, you know, having the Lexus experience, I think this could be really the unicorn that people don't see very often. And so, you know, maybe that gives the Land Cruiser a little bit more appeal for those that, you know, do desire that. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the Land Cruiser. Overall, it's still fantastic. It's just, you know, the pricing is just hard to justify because of the GX. And, you know, outside of that, I have no complaints with this thing, aside from those minor little nitpicks, which for me certainly wouldn't be deal breakers. I would still happily daily drive one of these. And I know some people have also asked, you know, if I wanted a fun off-roader, what would I get? And I'm not a hardcore off-roader or anything. So, you know, for me, I don't, you know, Bronco and Wrangler and stuff like that aren't appealing to me. So if I had this kind of money to spend on something with a adventure-ready kind of vibe, I would absolutely go Land Cruiser, you know, over most of those off-road competitors, which are just less appealing to me, to be totally honest, and a little too crude compared to this. But anyway, so that's all of my thoughts here on the 2024 Land Cruiser. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Toyota for providing me here with the Land Cruiser to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.